Hello and welcome. My name is Tolola Falashe, and with me is,
Hello, Benson.
and welcome to the Decrypting Relationship Podcast. So, Olu, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic.
And yourself?
I'm on top of the world. What can I say? What can I say?
Fantastic.
You know what? I'm grateful. Just grateful
Yeah.
for life, grateful for health.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go on, please tell us, disclaimer, what we
We
do.
are Decrypting Relationships.
Yes,
This
yes.
is the name of our podcast. And we are not experts, nor are we certified counselors or advisors of any form or shape. We are just two people in two different marriages who have passions for people's relationships, ours and others, really. And we aspire to see people succeed in their various relationships and at the various stages of their relationship. So that's really what we're about. So we're here to share our lives with people and see, hopefully, that people get encouraged and educated in the
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're taking our lemons and all the other lemons that we've experienced from people that we're connected to, and we're going to make
Mm-hmm.
lemonade with it. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had some experiences, isn't it? We're going to share experiences, and so that when we inevitably, people listening, even us as we're speaking right now, we'll go through cycles. When we inevitably come across some trials within our marriages, it doesn't seem so abnormal. We just know that this is commonplace, and then we find some tools and some insights, some knowledge to go through it and come out on the other side stronger and wiser. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about that exciting stage, the meetup. How was it for you when you were at that stage? How exciting was it for you? And
I think my, like I kind of alluded to in the last episode, mine was rather unconventional.
Yeah.
Because I literally took everything by the horns, and I was very assertive. I was very bold. I had three friends at one stage who came, and I had to tell them to narrow it down to the best qualified person.
That's right. We
And
discussed that last week.
Exactly. And I was very prayerful because whilst they were doing their selection or elimination by number process, I had to keep praying because my prayers didn't stop at God bring the right person. Well, God brought, I've known now in hindsight, God brought the right person, but there were two other wolves amongst the pack. So I needed to pray alongside whilst they were doing their thing, which seemed rather physical and exercise to them. I had to deal with the spiritual side by just seeking God's face all through that before my current husband were eventually chosen to come forward. And that didn't stop other people coming through because we were just at youth service when this happened. I went on to work for about 3.5 years before we eventually got married. So I still had other suitors, but I needed to be sure that I had chosen the right person. And we'll talk about how that conviction eventually came and some of the things that needed to be done after you had your conviction, and the other distractions were there and we're not learned to think, okay. So that's how it went for me. So how was yours? I think you kind of touched on it, but let's.
So similar. So I guess one of the things we want to discuss today is that there are different types of way people meet, isn't it? Sometimes in your case, you were in like uni environment, and it's like circle of friends. Some cases, now in my case, I was introduced, to my wife. Yeah. So a friend of mine that I've known for years and years and years said, "Tolu, you got to meet this person." I was like, "Bruv, I've known you all my life. We were in primary school together. We went to the same secondary school. We relocated from Nigeria to the UK, and we ended up in the same university. Never once has this guy actually spoken to him about, I want you to meet this lady. You understand?"
Okay.
And it wasn't like I had any difficulties in meeting ladies. Do you know what I mean? And I laugh, but it's a serious matter because I know there's some of our listeners who might be here and say, you know what, it's not easy to meet up. It isn't easy. So maybe we could speak into that a little bit. And
so you effectively had a matchmaker.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, go on. Ask the question.
Yeah, I wanted to then ask, the having discussed your relationship with this matchmaker in inverted commas, having discussed the longevity of your relationship with them, was your honoring that suggestion impacted by the respect that you had for that relationship, or was it something that you chose to go with because you saw this person and I thought, oh, okay, there might be a good potential here?
Good question. Let me see if I can answer your question. So the thing is this, I was at a stage, remember I was at a stage in my life where I thought, look, I need to turn my life around, right?
Yeah.
And I'd stopped all types of dating because I did date, prior to that. But I decided stop, focus on my faith, focus on fixing my relationship with my God, with my Creator. And so I wasn't really, in that space. And so when he came and he said, oh, I need you to meet this person. And actually, what made the connection for him was he was at work and she came to witness to him. Okay. You understand? And she's like, and so he's like, oh, you need to meet my very good friend that I've known all my life. He's always witnessing to me. Maybe you two can witness to each other or something,
Well,
so that's what it was, So so that's how for like and I met. We went on the, I just thought, okay, you know what, my best friend, the guy this chap I've known all my life. Okay, but that is how we sort of we started, to date, and then we found out that we're originally from the same place in Nigeria, same state. Our parents kind of knew each other. So going back to your question, which was, did the introduction, and let me see if this way, did the introduction have a bearing on moving forward with the relationship?
Yeah. In terms of the respect you had for the person who did the introduction.
Absolutely.
Okay. The reason I asked that question is in our culture and in so many other cultures, we have the notion of arranged marriages. And sadly or happily, in most cases, maybe the former, you find that people are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of coerced.
Obliged. There's some kind of obligation.
Exactly. And then in some cases there's coercion. So they're different, I think, from what I've seen and what I've heard. There are different forms of those arranged marriages. Some are transactional because they're business marriages, such that the two families can get on the family businesses can succeed. Some are pure, oh, well, you're from this neck of the woods and this is how it goes. You're from the elite part of the society and the elite have to marry the elite. And that is the reason I'm asking. So I'm because we're talking about the different types or different ways that people meet, it might be a good time for us to then ask, how do these introductions, which seem innocent at some point, how do they impact the actual process of you selecting who the right person will be?
Yeah, absolutely. So, because this good friend of mine introduced me to Folake, and to be honest with you, I think the friendship I had with him wasn't in any sort of danger, whether I move forward the relationship or not, right? So, so I think my moving forward, going out with Folake, having subsequent dates, and then proposing and getting married was, I would say, it came from really have seen the friendship, seen the love, seen our values, those things that we talked about earlier on, and just really fitting. I seem to have fit her bill. She fit my bill as well, if I can call it that. You understand? If you ask her, she'll say, Tolu was a God-fearing man, and that's why I liked him. because again, she met me at that stage where everything was about fixing my relationship with God, right? So that timing was really almost divine. It was almost perfect. Does that make sense? Yeah. But I guess, so it wasn't so much predicated, or I didn't feel obliged to go forward because my friend introduced us. It was just the timing was great and everything. So you could read into that. Do you understand?
Okay.
I could almost read into that. Yeah, go on.
What would you then say to people who are then in this arranged settings? And because you kind of got introduced by somebody, I didn't experience that, so it'll be very difficult for me and very impractical for me to speak to that space. What would then be your advice or your admonition for people who get into that space? Some work out healthily, but especially for those who then go ahead, those are the kind of things that they need to watch out for to make sure that even though they've been introduced or this is an arranged thing, to then be their own assessment of each other, so to speak, to see if their core values that would like we said emphatically, if they match, if their visions match, if their future ambitions match. What would you say to those?
Yeah, now that's very important question. Why? Because so even though I was introduced to Falake, there wasn't any pressure from the person who introduced us. We didn't have any dependency. You guys be together, get married, or else, because in some of the instances, for example, you mentioned arranged marriages. You talked about families, business families that come together and they bring their kids and want to connect their kids to advance maybe a business, the business empire, for example, or to maintain the sort of like the type of I don't know if it's the personality, that kind of thing, or you've got an elite quote unquote family, and then you just have to marry into another elite family type thing. So when couples meet or they're connected in that circumstance, it can be very, very difficult, can't it? Because if, say, for example, the guy and the girl decide, you know what, we are not really compatible. She loves to spend, and he's like, he doesn't really see the value in spending, but he wants to do. He has a different money mentality to her, or vice versa. Or maybe he's the one that spends. He's buying all the expensive stuff, but she wants to invest her money. You understand? Now, that's just one aspect of many. It could be like you said last time. Oh, I love a big family, and she wants a small family, and where do we find the compromise? Is there a compromise? So those kind of things are on the personal level. And if there's an issue where there isn't compatibility, then they could say, wow, this might not work, or how can we make this work? That's totally different from if they're like, oh, I don't think I can marry you, but if I don't, mommy or daddy will leave me out of the will or the arrangement. And so it becomes a very difficult situation, doesn't it?
Yes,
in all honesty, because the guy or the girl would then feel obliged. If I don't get married, I might not then. I'll lose I'll
lose out on the family inheritance and whatnot, and that becomes something really challenging. And I think each person just because at the end of the day, as much as these things are very out there, they're happening even in this current generation. I think each person, because like you said, they could be very difficult from what I've seen and what I've heard, very difficult to rebel against your family, but there has to be, and that's why we need to be prayerful that even in the midst of that matchmaking, God can touch the heart of whomever. So even the two people involved in this matchmaking or arranged marriage can still seek God's face to actually fine-tune their values so that there is a common ground for them to work from. Should you find yourself, that would be my advice, because I've never been there. So I don't know how difficult it is. I know that it's almost impossible to kind of rebel against your family, say, no, I'm not marrying this person. But should you be in that position, I think we still need to keep praying too. Whoever finds themselves that, you still need to go to God, because God, the Bible says that the heart of every person is in God, every king is in God's hands. And there's no heart that God cannot change. But it takes a level of humility from both sides to want it to work, and just go back to the source and ask for help. That would be my advice into that situation. So that's us really like talking about arranged marriages, because we were saying that there are different ways that you can meet your spouse. It could be through the conventional arrangement. Well, that's not the conventional. Through the one of the areas of arranged marriages between families, where from the age of God knows, from the time you knew you could recognize anybody, you knew who your husband or your wife would be, because they introduced them from like the minute you were literally there to recognize anything, say, this is your future. So that is a different path. And I think, so now that we've talked about that, what are
No, I want to add one last thing before we move
Sure.
to the, I think another pointer is this. If say eventually they get married, the couple get married, the couple that the parents brought together get married, before they get married, they really, really need to do some soul searching, because what the danger is when they go into marriage, the one or both, but it's usually in most cases, the stories we hear and the films we watch, is usually the guy. The guy is not settled. He still has one eye out there, wondering what, could have been if he had his own choice. And, so the danger is he still has, typically, and I think if we're being candid, because usually, because that's the nature of men. Men usually are that way inclined in terms of, I'm going to look for what I want. This is the person I want. I'm going to go after them. And now, if they've been forced to marry someone they didn't actually pursue themselves, then that hunter mentality is usually still there. Does that make sense?
Sorry, you carry on.
No, carry on.
No, I was just about to say that whichever way we look at it, it's still more often than not, the platform for that relationship is still a very unhappy one.
Yes, it is.
And my thing is that both of them need to pray, because before they even get to the point where they're married, if they know they can't get out of it, the best thing is for both of them to come together and start praying about it. Because it just sounds like a no-win situation, except there is a divine intervention in that scenario.
Absolutely.
It just sounds like a very sad no-win situation. Well, God is able, and that's why we pray. We pray to be alert. We pray to be prepped. We pray to step into it, so we can never stop praying. But we need to know what it is that we're praying for, and we have to be committed to what we're praying for. I think that's the important thing, that both parties need to be committed to wanting to make it work.
Yeah. I'm tempted to say, if you find yourself in that situation, just run a mile, don't do it. Don't do it, because marriage.
It's a very difficult situation.
It's a difficult situation.
If you're from one of those very, elite
families,
literally, they tell you that the family's reputation is hanging off your shoulders.
Well, Ollie, you and I.
It's a difficult situation.
Very, very difficult. Very difficult. And that's why I said,
thankful we're not in it.
And that's why I said, I might sound a little bit controversial about it, but marriage is tough enough as it is, And so if you go in without the desire to be with that person in the first place, oh my goodness, that's just. Anyway, let's move on.
Just pray that they're able to come to some form of a healthy, or at least an amicable middle ground, where they can make the most of it. And hopefully, in time, when they eventually get married, because things do change, maturity sets in.
Absolutely.
And then, if you don't stop praying, then you can start coming to that, healthy space.
So I think it's having the courage, and the resolve to say, what, if I'm going into this, I'm going to go into it wholeheartedly. I'm not going to have any resentment. I'm not going to think what could have been. I'm just going to commit to this, keep the family happy, and keep myself happy somehow.
It has to
It
be a
has to
conscious
be.
commitment to
It
do
has
that.
to be.
And
It has
yeah,
to be.
and
And
a
like
lot
you
of
said,
maturity too.
and you said prayer.
Yeah.
Prayer helps. Prayer helps. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the other way we considered as well was, obviously, um, like you met in the sort of like
Youth camp.
setting, yeah, youth camp setting, school setting. There are other kind of settings as well. I think one
Mm-hmm.
that came to mind was, say, the church, for example.
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
that down too.
yeah,
Yeah.
the church. You know, I know that some people have said to me many years ago that,
Mm.
oh, that guy only comes to church because he's scoping out the women, or
Mm.
that lady came to church only to check out to see if there any eligible bachelors in there. You understand? So,
Yeah.
what has been your experience, or in terms of stories you've heard? Because I know you speak into a lot of people's lives and you
Yeah.
try. And what are some of the things in this particular scope that
Um,
that you've heard? Or
Unfortunately, those are not rumors and they're not exaggerated. That
mm,
happens a lot.
mm, mm,
And that is why when we had our episode where we talked about prepare, pray, and be alert,
mm,
it's not, and I said earlier in this episode too, that whatever it is you're doing, you can't stay away from praying. Because when you're praying, the Bible says, be vigilant. So you need to be vigilant even whilst you're praying so
mm,
that you don't fall into the wrong hands. So the fact that somebody has disguised themselves, you feel attracted to them, there's still an opportunity for you to get out of it when you eventually find out this person, because they will always show their colors. They will slip up at some point. And that is one of the things where I wanted us to talk about today, that don't ever feel that because you said yes to one person, then you couldn't step away from it if you realize that your core values are not the same. Because I'd rather you cut your losses at that point and move
mm,
on than
mm,
for you to just say, oh, well, it's such a fine boy and she's such a fit girl, or whatever terminologies are used now. And then you end up going into a lifetime of sheer unhappiness.
mm,
Your core values are things that I cannot say it enough times, you cannot compromise on your core values. And people who go with that kind of heart to go and win or get a spouse from the church setting, they always slip up, except the
mm,
other person chooses to shut their eyes.
mm,
You will
mm,
see some traits about them that tell you that, this person isn't really godly. They will slip up if you choose to be vigilant. And that is why we need to make sure that mistakes will be made. That is just that you don't always get it right. You will, some people are lucky enough to say, yes to one person and eventually worked out. But sometimes, even at that stage, you still get it wrong. And when you do, please don't be too proud to say, I'm too committed to this, I can't step out. I'd rather you stepped out at that courtship stage than for you to get wed and be miserable for the rest of your life.
so
You
it's
have
what you're saying, right? Um, Let me see if I get what you're saying. If perhaps, say, you're a lady, you're at church, and a guy approaches you, is nice. Don't take it for granted that he is the real deal in terms of his intentions and his motives. You
don't
should
ever assume
still,
anything.
absolutely. So you should still be watchful.
Oh yeah.
You should still keep an eye and watch the person. And it goes both ways, doesn't it? But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
just assess what they're about. You need to assess
absolutely.
what both of you are about.
Don't take anything for granted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay, I hear that. I hear that.
What's your
Very.
take on it?
Oh, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Because I think that there is a misconception that, when you are in church, you meet someone at church, a brother, somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even the brother has come up to you and said, he heard specifically from the
Oh
Lord.
yeah. Oh dear.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
we giggle, but there is some legitimacy to that. It's only that I think it has been corrupted. That
It
whole
has
thing
been.
has been
Yeah.
corrupted. Yeah, it is legitimate for, I believe very strongly, for someone to have to sense that the Lord is directing them to a particular person to date. I believe that very strongly, but I think it has been, yes, corrupted. It's been
I think the beauty
abused.
of it is God always speaks to everyone. That's
It
why He
does.
said
Yeah.
everybody needs to be alert.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
fact that
Absolutely.
somebody, or like you said, there's legitimacy there, but it takes an effort on the other party's part to actually go before God and seek God's face to make sure they're hearing the right thing too. Because whoever was hearing, because trust me, we're human. We have the flesh is there. We have a natural sense of attraction. And you have this person who has all your physical attributes of what you categorize as, being attractive. They approach you. Sometimes you see them before you hear God. And then you're thinking, oh dear, even when God is saying, no, our heart might not be right. His heart might not be right. Thinking, oh, I can fix that. Oh, we can work around that. So we need to be careful to what extent we just allow someone's God has spoken to me statement to sway us. We need to go before God too and make sure both of us are hearing and we're hearing the same thing.
Absolutely. Now, I want to say something. I know this isn't really on our list, but what would you say to someone who desires a partner, a future partner, and perhaps, maybe they've been introduced, that introduction thing didn't work, like we talked about earlier on. They didn't really have the opportunity in the kind of setting you had, like a camp or that kind of environment where there's a lot of people, school camp, data, and perhaps the church thing hasn't worked for them either. They've not managed to find or meet someone that really did it for them in terms of, it didn't really, it hasn't developed further than just the exploratory phase. How can you encourage that person? I just sense in my heart to ask that question. How would you encourage that person?
I think what I'll say is, I will not undermine what frustrations might have set in that kind of scenario, because I didn't go through it. So I will not want to belittle how you're feeling. But at the end of the day, marriage is complicated enough, even with the right person, without you going into it with the wrong person. So if you're in that situation where it just hasn't worked out for you, all I'll say is I'll encourage you to just keep hanging on and just keep trusting that your time will come. Because I have friends who married very late. Some of us married early, some married really late. But there's a few of my friends who married really late in their 40s. They actually, when they met the right person, the few years that they've spent together, they actually felt where, they literally erased the almost 20-year wait that they had, whilst the rest of us married in our 20s and they married in their 40s. They, with the joy that they got from waiting, even though it was painful, it was embarrassing, the family pressure, everybody looking down on you like something was wrong, and the biological clock ticking away, everything that could stare you in the place to make you feel like you were incomplete or there was something missing was there. But they held on. And at the right time, the right people came. And in the few years that they've been married, they were happy they waited, because they then saw a whole array of marriages that were rushed into, literally collapsing around them. And we have so many of those, which is one of the reasons our hearts, we are passionate for healthy relationships, because of what we're seeing around us now. Marriages that have been on for 20-something years, literally collapsing because some things the foundation was never right. Some things were never handled when they were younger. And we'll get into those. So what I'll say is, it might seem a lonely path. I'll encourage people like that to find hobbies to do, find things that distract you, so you don't feel, oh, poor me, and my life is missing because my life is shortchanged because I don't have a partner. Make sure you complete yourself in the Lord and you're complete in yourself. like we said earlier in one of the earlier episodes, marriage is not there to complete you. You should be a complete person in the Lord, in your person. Before you bring, marriage is supposed to enhance you. It's supposed to bring out the best in you. But if you're not complete and you're looking to marry to complete you, it's just a mess. Because the person you're bringing in to complete you, more often than not, they haven't got it together too. And that is
Excellent.
all I'll say. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. I'm actually encouraged myself because it's about, keep believing and keep trusting that it will happen. Never give up, never give in, never compromise. Hold fast to your, to your beliefs. Hold fast to whatever, everything, and just know that it will happen. And know that it will happen. It's never too late. Never too late. Good.
Or better, like to say, it's better late than never.
Better late than never, yeah.
But it's also better late than sour, because I'd rather you had a late marriage than the sour marriage.
Yeah. But I think in this case, without trying to contradict, and I'm not, I think it's never too late, because if like you said, the people who got married in their 40s and if they're finding it blissful, I think it wasn't too late. It was never too late. It was just actually the right timing for them,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
True
okay.
that.
So we have run out of time.
Oh, already?
Absolutely. Can you believe that?
That caught me off guard too.
We have run out of time. Yes.
Oh, we were having so much fun.
We were. It's been excellent. Yeah, go on. You're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just about to say, that's why the podcast was created. So we have time to get, into as much meat of any topic as possible. We don't want to rush through anything. We want to try and take our time to kind of delve into areas that we know people are struggling in, or we had struggled in, when we went through those stages or those phases. So it gives us more to discuss in future.
Absolutely. So we talked about the meat, different ways of meat. Sometimes it could be direct, sometimes it's introduction, and how these modes or these types of meat actually translate into marriage, things to look out for. But I think at the end of the day, for me, my takeaway, and I'll ask you what your takeaway is. My takeaway is we must always be bold. We must always be courageous. We must always be committed, and check our motives. For doing what we do, going into what we're going to in terms of relationships in the marriage, and keeping it authentic, not because of duty, obligation. It has to be authentic, come from our heart. The desires come from our heart, from doing the right thing, from desiring the right connection and relationship. What about you? What's your
I think my thing is pray and pray more. You couldn't pray too much about your marriage or even stepping into it.
Yeah.
Because everything else you could get wrong, you could you could go on a wrong career path and then you redirect that. You can retrain and go into another path. You can, pick a wrong clothing from the shop, return it and pick the right one. If you pick a wrong partner, it's almost like you get married to them. It could literally destroy every other area of your life. Because if you're not happy at home, there is no peace at home, you don't love the person that you're living with, the decisions you make regarding your career, your bringing up your children, your relationships with other people in your life are going to be to a large extent dictated by the state of your marriage. So please, we need to invest in this first stage, this early stage of relationship. If you're looking to get married, I'd rather you did your investment now and reap the rewards later than rush into it now and face the pain, which is immense. When you listen to people who have been divorced or who are in unhappy marriages, it breaks your heart to listen to the pain that they go through. And more often than not, in hindsight, a lot of them, they saw the red flags. And that's why I've been emphatic about don't be too proud or to think that, oh, I can't step out of this now because I already said yes to this person. So, oh no, it's be ashamed. I'm too arrogant to say I got it wrong. Let's just cut our losses. The pain that people live through if they got it wrong because they didn't invest well at this initial stage is just unbearable. So please, don't stop praying and don't stop being alert. That would be my thing.
Very good. Thank you very, very much. So, Olu, we've come to the end of another episode.
Yay.
We will continue to oh yes, before we sign off, please remember to comment, to like the podcast. Your comments we will gather on social media because we do share this on other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, so on and so forth. So please comment, like this, and share. And if you ask us any questions, we will deal with those questions at some point in along the way, along this journey.
We will be, I think, to that questions area point. We will be tagging our email address. So to introduce some privacy to people who want to ask questions, we will be tagging our email address to the podcast. Once we figure it out, figure out how to do that, so that people can send their questions to us directly as opposed to posting them as comments on a public platform, just to give some privacy to people. So that will be something we're looking to do going forward. So bear with us. We're still learning. We're still building.
We're almost there. So yes. So until next time, when we will pick up from where we left off, I'd like to sign off by saying, stay safe, keep the relationships healthy, and let's just continue to be true to ourselves and to one another. And Olu, last words?
That's all we can say.
That's
just make sure you are true to your own self.
Absolutely.
And make sure you're happy in whatever decisions you're making.
Fantastic. So until next time, be safe and see you soon.
And be happy.
Be happy.
Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye.